restoration repairs, and today we're looking at something that's not a repair review of a client, but rather a guitar from my own collection, one that went through quite extensive restoration from the time that it was bought. It's a 1960s, I'm not sure what year in the 60s, circa 1960 Echo 700-4V. And yeah, this one was quite an interesting find. It was found in pieces at a local music shop in their storeroom, and I purchased it as such. It had at one stage been bolted to the wall. As you can see, the holes that's been screws have been put in there where they were. But we went on a mission to keep this guitar as original as physically possible. Luckily, most of the hardware was still intact and was still there, although there was an extensive amount of work that went into it to get it looking as you see it now. This is of course a laminate top, almost a Novilon type of plastic material, if you will, that's been pulled over chipboard. A very, I wouldn't say chipboard, but a very poor quality wood that was used. And what that resulted in was we couldn't use water. We couldn't use any liquid substance of any form. Which means that we used a dry 800 grit sandpaper to, of course, work out a lot of the deep scratches, and then we had to polish it by hand to get it to the shine that you see here. We could not use the buffing wheel, we could not spray it with any compound or any watery substance when using a buffing wheel to give it a lustrous shine. The other thing was, this is a rosewood fretboard. The fretboard had shrunk over time, and so all the frets were skew, standing up weird, and some of them had come out of their grooves and some of them were protruding here. We've actually left the last 3 protruding just so that you can feel how bad it was. They all had to be worked down. We had to do a leveling and grounding of frets across the whole fretboard to get that right. Luckily the truss rod did come loose after its long time standing. The wiring and electronics in this guitar are all still original. The original pods, original jack, which is astronomical considering the age of it. It's now 60 plus years, or 60 years at least. I mean, in a lot of modern guitars, the pods, potentiometers, volume and tone and things like that don't last past 2 or 3 years, and then they need to be replaced. So just absolutely astronomical. The wiring in this thing, oh my word, the wiring is unlike anything that I've ever seen before in a normal guitar. Of course, this was before the age of standardization. Nowadays it's common standard practice. You have a 3-way or a 5-way blade selector switch, or a 3-way toggle switch like your Les Pauls. Pretty standard parts that, regardless of the manufacturer, regardless of how custom the guitar is made, it's standardized. This one has a completely unique bridge design, completely unique tailpiece design, although a lot like the Bigsby. And the selector switch is this that you see up here, that a lot of people commonly refer to as the light switch setup. And what you have here is M, of course, stands for all your pickups are on. Number 1, number 4, number 1 and 4, number 2 and 3, and 0. Which I assume 0 being dead is for tuning purposes if you're on a live stage. It encompasses the 0 nut, or the 0 fret, apologies, on the fretboard. The only thing that we did replace was, of course, the machine heads. 2 of them were missing. The others were rusted and ceased beyond recognition, so we put Wilkinson tuners there. Strap pins, of course, we replaced. They were also rusted beyond compare. The neck wood was of such a bad quality, or over time it had gotten such that these screws did not tighten anymore. So we had to install a brass nut in the wood. I'm not exactly sure the terminology, but it's a threaded nut that goes into the wood. And these are little Torx bolts, stainless bolts, that are used to tighten that down to get that working. I can understand why a lot of the older musicians hate these guitars and think they are the worst on earth. If this guitar was just set up in a standard fashion, its action would have been through the roof. We had to do extensive modifying to get this guitar's action to a acceptable modern level or a modern height. For example, I mean, as I say, with its lowest adjustment, yeah, it was still standing at the 12th fret, yeah, by 4 or 5 millimeters. It should be 2 at least. So what we had to start doing were the little adjustment wheels. We made them thinner. The little eyelids where the wheels went into the scratch plate, that was brought down. The scratch plate itself was routed into to bring down. So every little millimeter, not even a mil, every little bit that we could have squeezed out of the bottom of this bridge, we had to. We had to sand it down to as much as physically possible. And we were able to achieve a 1.8 mil action at the 12th fret, which I'm very happy about. That's a modern acceptable level to be at. The hardware on this guitar was rusted and corroded. The main piece here, the main tail piece, the bridge and the back plate all had to be sent in for nickel plating. That was redone and brought back to us to get that looking as you see now. We built we bent a stainless steel tremolo bar. It's not as the original one was. But yeah, just so that we could have the tremolo working. The intonation, if we had left the adjusters or the saddles, as you see these round threaded saddles over here, as they were standard out the factory, there's no way we would have got intonation set on this guitar. Yeah, where it gets higher up, we had to actually cut the saddles in half and cut them lower and as low as we possibly could for that adjustment to get the intonation correct. So I do understand the frustration with these guitars. A lot of people hate them. The wood collapses whenever you try to tighten screws on it. The wood is not of a great quality. As I said, this is a plastic coating. The selector switch is not standard. The pickups are very low ohm output, single coils if you will, although there are capacitors and resistors behind them that are doing God knows what. And that's why they are adjusted so close to the strings, a lot closer than normal single coil pickups would be, to achieve a better sound out of it. But considering that Echo is an Italian company, they are still going today. They were established in 1959 and this is one of their 1960s models, so this would have been one of the very first models they ever produced. There's not a lot of them in existence, and yeah, those that are missing a lot of parts. Guys have made makeshift tail pieces and bridges for them. I've seen light switches being used here for selector switches, because a lot of these mechanisms are gone, and it's impossible to get parts for this guitar, because as I say, nothing on this guitar is standardized to anything that's used nowadays. And that's half the appeal of it and why it is so ugly that it's actually become beautiful in a sense and retro. Is because it was before everyone copied everyone in the guitar world, and a lot of the things that you see here, although they might not be good ideas, you'll never see them again. It was an age and a time when people were experimenting and trying things and how things would work and how things could be made, and yeah, just an absolutely magnificent job from the Italians on this. But as I say, I can understand the frustration of a lot of the older musicians, their opinion on Echo, because if this guitar didn't go through modification on its setup, it could not have been set up to modern standards at all. If I just had a screwdriver and an Allen key, there's no way that I would have got the intonation right, or that I would have got the action low enough to be comfortable. So yeah, a lot of extra work had to go into it, but here it is. And of course, I'm a big lover of vintage instruments, so it is one of the treasured items of my collection. But we'll take it for a spin and hear what you think about it. So there you have it, the circa 1960s Echo 700 V4, 4V. And as I say, I'm astounded that all the electronics work on this guitar 60 years later, including volume and tone, which is a shame compared to modern components. And it's an absolutely incredible, weird guitar. And as I say, my appeal on this guitar is that you'll never see one again, and by that I mean in modern production. They will never try these things out again like they did on this one, which makes it pretty unique and something different. So there you have it. Till next time.